You're listening to the One Man Show Network. Welcome to the MMA Fight Picks Podcast with your host, Aaron Weinbaum.
Hey everyone, welcome to the MMA Fight Picks Podcast. I am your host, Aaron Weinbaum, and for the second week in a row, we have fights to talk about, which is awesome, in Jacksonville, Florida, again, and what will presumably be another empty arena, but that's all right because I was certainly happy to see some fights over the weekends, especially the co-main and the main did not disappoint. But let's talk about that first. Dominick Cruz complaining of a late stoppage, saying the referee he smelled like alcohol and cigarettes, I guess, and it looked like a decent stoppage to me, but it is what it is. Henry Cejudo, I did pick to win, but I didn't pick him to retire, which is crazy, and I certainly didn't pick him to retire for real estate, which, of course, means a really good night for my Iaquinta Realty Twitter account. So, yeah, it was super awesome, but I am excited to pick some more fights, and let's talk about that main event. Man, Tony Ferguson, Justin Gaethje, I did pick, of course, Gaethje to win. I only picked him to win because that weight cut. He did this weight cut he didn't need to do 2 weeks out. You know, Chael Sonnen told me he's a wrestler, not to worry about it, but you got to think that did affect him in some way, shape, or form, you know, because when you're wrestling, you're going up against other guys that cut weight all the time too. And so Gaethje, I think the fresher man, not as long of a training camp. Yeah, I hope they run it back someday. I hope this isn't the end of Khabib and Tony Ferguson. You never know what could happen. There could be a short notice thing that could come up, but man, that was tough to see because Tony Ferguson, unless he won this fight, had nothing to gain except for a fight that he was already promised, and there he goes, puts it all up in there, and it's just a banging affair. And how patient was Justin Gaethje, man? Crazy. Well, like I said, we are picking some fights tonight. I'm just on Periscope. I'm having some multi-stream issues with Restream. I'm probably done with them for good. But if you are on the Periscope and you want to help me pick some fights for UFC Jacksonville, the hashtag is UFCJax, J-A-X. I wonder what next week's will be. Or no, there's two this week. One Wednesday, I think one Saturday. It's awesome. So I'm picking Wednesday. So this is a little sooner than I would normally come out with the podcast, but you will get two this week if everything goes according to plan. So first up, we have Chase Sherman versus Ike Villanova. And this is Chase's return to the UFC in almost 2 years. Oh, thanks for the love there. Amazing. So he comes out on a skid, losing 3 in a row, all right? 2 of them knockouts. All of a sudden, he's getting 3 fights, TKO, first-round knockouts, all 3 of them. He's looking good. Frank Tate, Jeremy May, and Rashawn Jackson. Now you got Ike Villanova. This is his first foray into the UFC, but he is coming off a 1, 2, 3, 4 fight win streak. Now here's the problem. Chase has been there before. Chase also on a win streak, but Ike usually fights at light heavyweight, and Chase being the bigger man, Chase been in the UFC before, Chase coming back has something to prove. Kudos to both these guys taking this fight on short notice, but I gotta say, I like Chase Sherman in this one. All right, Andre Arlovski versus Philip Lins. You know, Arlovski's been streaky here and there. I think he's at ATT now. I'm not really sure, but gosh, his last 3 fights, you know, he did beat Ben Rothwell in kind of a ugly decision there. Got knocked, out by Jairzinho Rosenstreich. Let's take a look at Philip Lins. Not as familiar with Philip, but, whoa, he's on a 4-fight win streak. Josh Copeland, Jared Rolshaw, that's no joke. Sial Alsanar, Alex Nicholson, he, is a Bellator, PFL veteran, but never in the UFC. But I don't know, man. I love Andre Arlovski, and I'm glad the UFC gave him one more run, but I got to go Philip Lins here. I think he's the up-and-comer. Ricky Simone, the best mullet in all of sports right now, versus Ray Borg. Ricky is coming off, he's coming off a 2-fight losing streak. My bad. Rob Font and Urijah Faber. And that Faber fight, I mean, Faber really surprised me because I thought Simone had this. But before that, man, lots of green, lots of wins. Hanayaya, Montel Jackson, Marab, Davashili, but that was kind of a controversial choke. I don't think that was right to call that. Chico Camos, lots and lots of wins. And you got Ray Bourque. You know, I want to root for Ray Bourque all the time. You know, he had a sick kid and all kinds of surgeries and this and that, but he keeps missing weight, whether it's flyweight or bantamweight or whatever. He finds a way to miss weight. And what he get down to last bout? He did beat Rogerio Bontorin, but he only got down to 128 pounds. This was at a flyweight. This match with Ricky Simone will be bantamweight, 135 pounds. But, you know, we shall see. Yeah, I don't know, man. This is tough. You know, he's a little undersized at 135 pounds, but he can't make 125, so this is really a tough spot. But then you got Ricky Simone, you know, up-and-comer, something to prove, 2-fight losing streak. I think I like Ricky Simone in this fight. So I'm sure that he is not an odds favorite on that, but there we go. Drew Dober, Aleksandar Hernandez. You know, you will remember early on Aleksandar Hernandez out of nowhere coming out to upset Beneil Dariush. Very interesting. And the Canadian gangster, Oliver Aubin-Mercier. And then, of course, he did lose to Donald Cerrone, a fight I picked him to win because you never knew. I mean, you know, Cerrone hadn't fought at lightweight in a while, and recently a decision win against Francisco Trinaldo. Drew Dober, though, gosh, man, he's been on a tear as well. 2 wins in a row. Marco Polo Reyes, Nasrat Haparest, before that wins. He did lose to Benny, submission. It happens. And then, you know, he has wins over John Tuckman, Camacho, and Josh Berkman. Man, that's dating way back. I haven't seen old Josh in a while, but that was 2017. Very interesting. And like I said, if you are on the Periscope, feel free to help me pick as well. Man, I think, you know, I like Aleksandar Hernandez, but I think that Cowboy stole some of his soul that night, you know, and he's just a little bit more cautious now. I like Drew Dober. He's been more active. He just fought in January. So I'm going to go Drew Dober there. This is a very interesting one. OSP competing at heavyweight for the very first time against Big Ben Rothwell. You last saw Ben Rothwell kicking the nuts off of Stefan Struve and beating him in a fight that Stefan Struve should not have continued. Should have taken the DQ, but it is what it is. Before that, 3 losses in a row. Andrei Arlovski, Blaga Ivanov, Junior Dos Santos, all 3 decisions. And, you know, let's face it, that last one, Junior Dos Santos, was 2016. So he's fought 3 times now since back from suspension, and his last fight, obviously, last December. OSP, this is hard to pick. He's a really big light heavyweight. I don't know what he's going to weigh at heavyweight, but he did just win during the the Von Flue choke. That's crazy. He keeps getting that move. It's like Bryce Mitchell in the twister. I mean, he didn't quite get the twister, but gosh darn, all those attempts. That was crazy. For that, he's got 2 losses though in the light heavyweight division. Nikita Krylov and then, you know, Dominick Hayes. But it was weird. He did get submitted against Nikita. You know, I hope this is just one of those cases where he's cutting too much weight and he's going to really come on big and strong. But, you know, these guys that come up, they don't understand that these guys are bigger and stronger, especially heavyweights. They don't want to cut any weight most of the time. I think big men may, but we shall see. You know, Ben's got that sneaky inverted moob choke he does where he chokes you out with his boobies. So, interesting. I think I'm going to go with, Big Ben. All right, the main event of the evening. You last saw Anthony Smith fight a robber in his home. Barely squeaked that one out. And before that, he fought Alexander Gustafsson. This is the fight for me, this Gustafsson fight, where this is what kind of won me over Anthony Lionheart Smith, because he did have wins in the light heavyweight division, but, you know, Rashad Evans, Mauricio Shogun, who are their best days behind them, still, hell of guys, hell of fighters, but it did get that, like that last minute or the last round rather. No, it was almost last minute against submission against Volkan Oezdemir. Lost to John Jones. That seems to be a thing. And I thought Gustafsson would have had his number that night. I would have picked him to win, but with broken hand and all, he submits Gustafsson. And this is when he really won me over as a contender in the light heavyweight division. Now you got Glover. He's always been a killer, really big light heavyweight. Sneakily, he has 3 wins in a row. Nikita Krylov, Jan Kutabiela, I always say his name wrong, and Carl Robertson. He did have a loss against Corey Anderson. He got wrestled to death. But gosh, man, this is going to be a good fight. I think it's going to be a sleeper. I'm not sure what everyone's going to, expect out of this, or maybe it's not a sleeper. Maybe everyone's expecting this to be a good fight. But the main event of the evening, I have Anthony Lionheart Smith. So that's it. Your picks for the second UFC Jacksonville fight card after 249 here, or the first one rather, and you got another one coming later in the week. I will be back to pick that one. All you looky-loos on Periscope, I hope that if you tried to make a comment, it didn't get blocked out somehow. So I apologize. If so, send me a message on Twitter, and I'll try to get that fixed. But until next time, this is the MMA Fight Picks Podcast, and I'll see you later on the week.
Please remember to support the podcast by visiting the affiliate links on AaronSaysWhat.com.